Welcome everyone to our debut Zoom for Decatur Parents Network Speaker Series. This is our first time trying it using Zoom webinar, and we are doing that for all the obvious reasons. And if we can pull this off tonight, we may be able to continue these so we don't lose touch with all of you as parents. And we knew that a lot of you were sitting out there waiting to probably talk more about this as it relates right here in our own community. So that's why we're here. Just a couple housekeeping things. We are recording this webinar, and mainly we're doing that because we know not everyone could make this time tonight, and we want to be able to share the recording with them because we know there's going to be some great conversations. I wanted to also talk about a little bit who you are seeing here. I am Jennifer Walcott, or Jen Walcott, and I am on the leadership team of Decatur Parents Network. Also on the leadership team for Decatur Parents Network is Peter Pliszka, and he's going to be our moderator this evening. And Terry Moore, we are using her DPI Zoom account in order to run this webinar, but she's allowing me to host it, and so she's trying to stay there in the background and give me tech support. Then we have our four panelists, and Peter is going to introduce them in just a second. But I want to talk, one big housekeeping thing is that we want to encourage everyone, and I do have the power as host to kick people off, but I don't think that's going to happen tonight because I see most everybody on here is folks we already love here in Decatur. And I know you're going to follow all our normal courtesy guidelines this evening. So if we enter into any Q&A and chatting, remember no cyberbullying, no illicit photography or videos, no spreading rumors, no harmful or hateful words about others. So I think we all already know that, but I feel it's important to remind us of that as we're all sitting here as friends together as neighbors. One thing, again, I wanted to say about Terry being on there, yes, we talked about DPI. DPI is one of our strongest partners with Decatur Parents Network, and it's usually doing, they have funding sources. Since we are a free entity over here, we don't ever ask for membership fees or anything for Decatur Parents Network, but it's through grants and work that she has through DPI that made this possible tonight. So many thanks to her and DPI. So I am going to turn it over now to Peter, and I will sit in the back. Chat me personally if you're having any problems with it or if you have questions, and we will do some Q&A shortly. Thanks.
Thanks. And Jen, did you point out that are we trying to direct people to the Q&A first before the chat, or just to keep things in one place? Or we're looking both places?
Well, again, that was a technical thing we were supposed to try out that I don't know. Tell me,
I think we would ask that, well, I think we'd ask that if the attendees have questions, to use the Q&A function, so correct?
Yeah, but I don't know how to turn that on. So we'll get there. I'll let you go ahead and start with the panelists.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us for Parenting During a Pandemic. It's what we're all doing right now. And the message we want to get across is the tagline we used in our email, which is we're all experiencing new ways of being together, in person, in person, online, and in our hearts. So we're all feeling different feelings these days. So we want to go through some of the things that we know are top of mind for you all, to be helpful. So we have a great round of panel on all aspects of the Decatur community, and we think we can touch upon a really robust set of answers and recommendations and suggestions to help you all through this. So we have Dr. Kimberly Jones, who is the CSD, City Schools of Decatur lead counselor. We have Nurse Shonda Moore, who is the lead nurse. We have Susan Morley, who is a local parent coach. So, and then we have Lindsey Soder, who is a counselor at Pathways Transition Programs. So we're going to, you see how we're going to try to connect with all aspects of these topics. And just to reframe what we're talking about is we are talking about respecting the needs of all family members who are unexpectedly at home together. There's a new dynamic going on with our families right now. Empathizing with your child who may be in a transitional grade. In Decatur, we have 4 transitional grades, 2nd, 5th, 8th, and 12th, and that they're moving on ceremonies, and their traditional end-of-year ceremonies are going to look different this year. And we need to understand about that. And then using online resources to their fullest potential. I think we're all seeing our emails fill and our news feeds fill with great things to do. Museum visits, online classes, yoga. How can we introduce those online resources to our kids that don't sound like another thing that we're telling them to do, but we make it relevant for them to want to participate in? So those are our 3 big topics we're going to cover tonight. And I guess we'll go in turn alphabetically for our team to introduce themselves and to make some opening comments about what their world looks like. Dr. Jones?
Thank you, Peter. So, as Peter has mentioned already, I am Dr. Kimberly Jones. I am the district lead counselor as well as the head counselor at the high school. Additionally, I'm the mom of a 12-year-old Decatur High School graduate, a 17-year-old Decatur High School senior, and an 11-year-old Renfro Middle School 6th grader. So I am, along with many of you, in a new zone of working from homes, and experiencing lots of new things. So a bit of the area that I was focusing on for this evening relate to academic expectations. We're kind of all over the place with what do we do. Today we got guidance from the district in that I know having a middle and high schooler, we're expecting about 2 hours a week of work per class. Teachers are focusing on the most important concepts in each subject or content area. And for subjects that scaffold, like math and things of that nature, they're focusing on what it takes to prepare to scaffold for the next year, and working within our present limitations to do those things. As a counselor and thinking about the social, emotional, and physical withdrawal that students are going through, we're social beings. Introverts, we energize socially. Extroverts, we withdraw to energize, and I say we because I'm in that group of introverts, but we still need to experience interactions, and we're all feeling a level of deprivation. Physiologically, in some individuals, that response or affect you see in yourself, in your children, in your friends and family will equal that of grief. Your actions. As much as you may say you don't like that teacher, you're grieving those interactions with that teacher. So in some of the resources that we have for you later, there is an article about explaining that what you're feeling is grief. And for those of you that have been with us for a while with DPI and DPN, I too am a member of the Decatur Parents Network. When we first started, we had a lot of information and experience with some troubling data in the district. Some of our students have access to things that we don't want them to have access to: alcohol, drugs, vapes. This shelter in place also cuts off their access to some things that they probably shouldn't have been engaging with in the first place. And so some of what we're seeing is not just a social withdrawal and grief, they're going through physical withdrawal as well. So some of that response and affect that you're seeing is the result of them not having access to some non-healthy things as well. So we want to be cognizant of that And that may potentially be a silver lining in some of this that we're experiencing, that they're able to distance themselves from some unhealthy things. And the last point is missed event anxiety is very real. Our 2nd, 5th, 8th, and 12th graders, as we get closer to these events that they've been looking forward to, moving on, prom, baccalaureate, things of that nature, their anxiety is going to heighten because they're looking forward to something that may not happen. And then it's going to turn to grief as events are canceled, if they have to be canceled. So again, refer back to that grief article that we give you, we're going to give you access to. And just know we've been having conversations, principals and faculty and staff wants to cancel anything. And we're hoping that we're still able to have some of these events in some way. And know that principals and faculty and staff have already started brainstorming ideas about how to maintain community and celebrate our students, no matter what our school environment is looking like. And that's all I have for now. I'm here to answer questions a little later, and we'll go to the next panelist.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. So
welcome.
Nurse Shonda Moore, as I introduced you, you're the CSD lead nurse, so you're on the front line of a lot of activity that's happening in the district right now. And you're also keenly poised to talk about some of our life skills.
Yes. Thank you, Peter. As Peter said, my name is Shonda Moore, and I am the lead district nurse for CSD school district. And you are absolutely right. What my life looks like at this point, every day it's consumed with COVID-19. Every day, all day. I am usually tuned into a lot of things that I would later speak to others not to be tuned into. I'm constantly looking at what's going on the media, just to make sure that I have accurate information to provide to not just our district, but our community. So at home, I am a wife and I am a mother. Most of my children, my 2 boys, are older. The one I have home is a girl, and she is a high schooler. She's in the 9th grade. However, during this time, I feel like I am dealing with, oh gosh, she would kill me if she could hear me. I feel like I'm dealing with a young one because she is melting every day. She's so absolutely bored out of her mind. She's actually saying she misses school. I think she misses her friends more than anything. I've become her best friend, and that's been very difficult because, and I'll speak to this later, for you to some ways to stay healthy is to stay on schedule. It's very, very difficult because she is a high schooler. She wants to stay up all night and sleep all day. And in an effort to spend time with our child, we find ourselves kind of staying up late with her, catching movies and doing those kinds of things. And I know a lot of the communications that have come out have been how we can support the smaller ones. And I'm grateful for Dr. Jones and some of the communications that she's put out that for the high schoolers as well. Because I just had to teach my daughter how to play jacks last night. Who knows?
Ooh.
Right, exactly. That's something I played when I was a kid. Now that she's gotten tired of the electronics, we got to figure something out. So, but I'm going to go to my screen really, really quickly because I would like to speak to not just about the kids in our home, the students, but our family across the board. Because as parents, we have to make sure that we're able to remain healthy in order to take care of our families. And I know oftentimes we forsake our own health to take care of everyone else, especially I know on my end as a nurse, I'm the worst patient ever. And so I have to remember when it's just like the airplane, when you're on the plane, you've got to put that mask on yourself first in order to be there for others. So I want to speak to that a little bit very, very quickly. I won't take up too much of your time. Let's see if I can bring up my screen rather quickly. Oh, of course it would do this. You get to see all of everything. Here we go. Let's see if you can. All right. Let me know if you're able to see it, please.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. So my topic today is what can I do to help stay healthy in the home? And I know that a lot of this is going to be redundant. I know you've heard it over and over and over, but we cannot emphasize it enough. Of course, what can you do? Wash your hands. Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. And I think some of us don't realize how little, well, I won't say how little we washed our hands before, but now it's like, oh my gosh, I'm washing so much that my hands are just dry and tired. So one thing that one of the nurses told me that she did for her family, especially with the little ones, is she hung signs in the bathroom just to remind them that they have to wash their hands. She has tiny ones, and so they're used to going to the bathroom, running out, unfortunately. So hanging signs up just to remind not just the kids, but some adults as well, that you have to wash your hands when you come out of the bathroom, before you have your meals, just the basic thing that you think most people would recognize. Now I think more attention, of course, is being brought to us. So just remember that. That is definitely the first thing you should think about in an effort to prevent illness. Let's see, cover your cough, sneeze with a tissue. So the direction is no longer to sneeze in your elbow or to cough in your elbow, because a lot of people don't really know how to do that. So when you see people, you're in public, of course it's not you or anyone in your home, but when you're in public and you see someone they do make an effort to sneeze in their elbow, oftentimes it looks like this. So I don't know if you can see me, but their arm, it's kind of like, you didn't sneeze directly and you didn't pull it in close so that you can catch that sneeze. So what they're saying now is it's kind of discouraged to sneeze in your elbow, but and to use a tissue. But if you are in a position where you don't have a tissue or something dandy to grab very quickly, of course use your elbow, but learn what we call coughing and sneezing etiquette. So there's a proper way to do it. So teaching the little ones to do that, and trying to avoid sneezing in their hands. I know one thing I did for my child when she was a little one is I took a sock, and what I did is I cut part of the sock off and I slid the sleeve over her hand. And this was the germ catcher. And so anytime she had to cough or sneeze, at that time it was cover your mouth with your hand. You are coughing onto that sock. And so that was a fun way for her to remember that I can't just sneeze in the air. I can't just cough in the air. Because at this time, what we have to do is we're taught as nurses and healthcare providers that you assume everyone is infected. And that's where we have to be at this point in public, of course. Next, I would say avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. This has been very challenging for most people. I've been on a lot of webinars lately, of course, and they kind of call me the police, because as I watch the panelists or anyone that's on the webinar, I know people touching their eyes, people touching their nose, people touching their mouth, and that's a very difficult habit to break. And when I say to them, hey, don't touch your eyes, don't touch your nose, don't touch your mouth, they say, well, I'm in my house. Well, that is true. But it's a good idea, it's a good practice to start to use, to not continuously cover and, I'm trying to show you, but I shouldn't be doing it. So try your best to keep your hands away from your face. Let's see. This is an obvious one. Limit contact with people that are ill. If you have someone in your family that's ill, find ways to kind of not distance yourself, but in a sense, distance yourself, isolate them. And if that means changing sleeping arrangements until they start feeling better, without fever and whatever direction your physician gives you, just be mindful of that. Clean and disinfect your home. So I live in a home where my husband is a bit of a germaphobe, as am I. And so we are cleaning regularly. But before the pandemic, I didn't realize how important it is. So what we do every day is we go around, and this is a daily thing that you should get in the practice of doing. Wipe down your doorknobs, anything that's you're constantly touching, even your keyboard on your computer, anything that the family is moving about and touching, your railings on your stairs. We're fortunate enough to have 1 can of Lysol. So my husband is a spraying Lysol genius. And by the way, if you do have Lysol or any type of disinfectant, don't spray and then wipe it off. You have to just go ahead and spray and let it be. Let it settle out. Okay, exercise regularly. Exercising regularly is beyond important. I would never typically talk about the mental health. I would leave that up to counselors and people like Dr. Jones. But what I will say to you is exercise affects your mood because it decreases your hormones, for example, cortisol. And so that's very, very important with your health. And let's see, maintaining a healthy diet, of course. We all know that. So one thing that one of the nurses said to me today that's very important is get up and get dressed daily. Don't keep on your pajamas, because when you pull up your pants daily, you can kind of see if you're picking up weight. But if you have on yoga pants, if you have on tights, then, they're very forgiving. So I got to credit my nurse Marla for putting that out there. I think that was a great idea. It's very important. And I have definitely seen, because I have an abundance of snacks here, I've seen what difference that can make in putting on my jeans every day. Get plenty of rest. That goes without saying. Find ways to decrease your stress and anxiety. Absolutely very important, because if you have an increase in anxiety, it affects your immune system and you're more vulnerable for infection. So find ways. Take a bath, a hot bath with candles and anything that you can do to decrease your stress level or your anxiety about this thing. And I do have some resources that I will show you a little later that you can use to help decrease your stress. Quickly, healthy snacks you can choose, healthy options. Again, when we first went on this break that we're home, I'm guilty of it. I'm addicted to these Junior Mints, and I've eaten bags and bags of them. And now I can see it in my lower region. So I've had to turn to some of the things that I know that I should be eating, like fresh fruits and vegetables. Believe it or not, most people do not turn to vitamin C until they get a cold or they get sick. So think about those things. The things that you should be eating around the year are healthy fruits and vegetables. Don't just eat them now. It's very important. Now, forgive yourself if you are just starting now. That's okay. But let's keep this habit up, because it's very important that we are maintaining a healthy diet. And I listed some. I won't go through all of them. Some options that you can choose: home with the kids, popcorn, that's always a favorite of mine, a fruit smoothie, kale chips. Kale chips is a superfood. It's a superfood. It's packed with vitamins. In 1 cup, you can get your daily recommendation of vitamins A, K, and E. So they're perfect. Broccoli. It's best if you can have it uncooked, but if you can't, it's better than nothing. So just find ways. For the kids, frozen fruit snacks. You can control the fruit snacks that you make. They're very easy to make. I do have some resources, some recipes for you. You can freeze orange juice pops so they can get that when they need that. And that's pretty much it for me. I will go ahead and turn it over, and below I have some resources, or on the screen I have some resources and my contact information. And forgive me if I took up too much time, but I did want to make sure that everyone really, really focused on your health at this time. Right now we have a lot of time where we can cook at home, and I do understand we want to support our businesses, but you have time to look at the ingredients in your foods. Take that time and make sure that you're feeding yourself healthy things instead of the things that we do when we're trying to grab fast food all the time. So thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. We appreciate it. And everybody, each of the panelists have a set of resources that we're going to share out afterwards. So don't worry about taking notes off the screen. We'll push those out to you. They may mention them in their remarks, but we'll make them available. So thank you so much for all that practical information. So Susan Morley is a parent coach. I'll let her kind of take it from here on how she views this, how she's helping in this situation.
Hi, everybody. My name is Susan Morley. I am a parenting coach, and I'm also a parent to 2 children, one who graduated from Decatur High School last year, and I have a sophomore at Decatur High School right now. I'm also a certified elementary school educator, and I substitute teach in the school system once a month or so, and I'm a member of DPN. So I too I'm going to share a resource with you here. It's an evolving resource. When I got the realization that the schools were going to be closing and it was starting to dawn on me, I work from home, so I have had a flexible schedule for years, but when I realized my husband was going to be working from home, and then I thought, gosh, the schools are going to close. Wait a minute. How is this going to work? And I realized if I'm wondering how this is going to work, my clients and every other parent is wondering how this is going to work. So some of us got laid off, and some of us are looking for jobs. Some of us are able to anyway, so some of us are more busy. So I wanted to share this resource, so I'm going to share a resource here. So with everybody, I created something called Mom Tribe, and I'll actually first, I think I'm going to put it in the chat, or we'll put it at the end, my resource. It's absolutely free. I'm adding new information regularly. So the way this works is, let me do it this way. Okay, so what it's going to, when you get the link and you click on it first, this is what you're going to see. You'll click Get Now, and then you'll be at the home page. So here, I just threw this together. So if there are any typos, you can just email me and let me know.
Very forgiving, Susan, no worries.
Okay. So I threw this together, and we are doing school at home. I know that, it is in a way it's homeschool because the kids are at home doing school. But here we are so lucky. Our teachers are just taking care of it. They're working double time, getting everything together. So we're not having to pick the curriculum or pay for the curriculum. We are getting that kind of support. What we need to do is we're going to be managing and supervising, right? So that's where I kind of step in. So I make a little video, and then it's just available 24/7. So when you go into Mom Tribe, there's going to be lessons at the top here. So I make a little video, I give you a little something, but then here are the lessons. So if you want to, this is all about preparing. So for me, I haven't done this yet with my kids because they're going to be doing this coming up soon, right? So, well, on Monday, and today's Thursday. So I've just got, here's how you're going to also in my next module here, survive and thrive during school at home. Okay, so this is going to be, I hope, very helpful. So for example, how to create a study space. If our kids are usually doing a couple hours worth of homework at home, maybe they're doing it on their bed or kind of upside down on the couch, that's not going to cut it for school at home. We need to provide a dedicated space, Some kids are going to thrive when they're by a window so they can take brain breaks and look outside. Some kids, they're not going to do well with that. They need blank walls. So talk with your child and work with them to figure out what is going to work best for them. That's what that's about. Under create a schedule, she's my parenting coach, Shanna, she works in Forsyth County. She shared with me a Google Doc that I'm sharing with you. We edited it a little bit together. So you get to list in, they can do it online or you can print it out and they can just, here I'm going to do math, here I'm going to take a break, here I'm going to watch a TV show, here I'm going to do social studies. So the kids get to really organize their day. And when you take a break from work, you can kind of take a glance either on a shared Google Doc or on a printed piece of paper. How are they doing? Are they staying on track? You can have a discussion about it. I have a little module on how to have a family meeting on rolling out. And I do recommend that families have regular family meetings during this time. Okay, so Dr. Jones mentioned there's a lot of grief going on. I'm one of those people that I want to say, I don't do grief. Well, if we don't do grief, grief does us. And so meetings on a regular basis are going to be important, and I detail how to have an effective family meeting in this lesson. When we have a regular family meeting, everybody can talk, and as it gets more comfortable, it's going to be awkward at first, I'm not going to lie. As people get more comfortable, you're not going to believe what your children are saying to you and the kind of deep conversations you can have. And I'm encouraging my clients, and I'm going to encourage you, be open and honest too. Talk about if you have a senior, for example, or one of those milestone years, your kid's 5th grade, et cetera. Talk about a time when you had a huge disappointment and how you handled it. Those are the kinds of things you can do. Okay, I'm going to move on a little bit. Hassle-free schoolwork. We don't want you to be laissez-faire and just say, figure it out, kid. But we also don't need you to be micromanaging. These kids in our school district are well prepared. Trust that. I have a short interview with my friend Shanna. She just says, here's what I recommend for parents. And then I created a schedule for moms at the end because I realized my calendar wasn't cutting it anymore. And I created a new schedule. Again, that's a Google Doc, or you can just download what I created. And then this piece right here, tips and tricks, we are talking about, I'm going to be for preschoolers. My internet connection is unstable. Okay, my internet went out for a second. How to set up your living room like a preschool classroom, just with different centers. I'm going to be adding these things. It's just taking, social distancing. This is super important. Our kids, and this has been brought up by Dr. Jones, are so sad. They are really having a hard time and they miss their friends. And yes, they miss their teachers too. So what I'm trying to get them to do, and we'll see if it pops up or not, I list 3 ways. One way, which is my favorite way, is have lunch bunch. So get the phone number of a parent of one of your children's friends, coordinate what time you're going to have lunch on Wednesday, and then do a Zoom call or Skype or FaceTime. And then you can set that device up, maybe an iPad, laptop, or an iPhone or any. Let me tell you something. Kids are extraordinarily social every single day. And we have cut all that off. And so don't worry about screen time right now. You might want to check how much entertainment screen time they're getting, but I wouldn't count texting, calling, FaceTiming. Just let them have as much as they need. If it's causing a problem, of course, you need to talk about it. The other thing you can do is grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, invite them to dinner. So then you can set up different devices and you can have extended family members who aren't living with you. You can invite them to dinner on different evenings, and then they'll eat their dinner in their house and you'll eat your dinner in your house. So those are two of the ways that I mentioned there. And then I want to mention one more thing before I go. I was lucky enough to be interviewed for a New York Times article on teenagers. How are they coping with this? Because this is super tough on them. For adolescents, this is when peers become super important in their lives. And we are cutting that off right now. And it's extraordinarily difficult for them. So when we need to, they can't be with their friends. They just can't. They can do it electronically. But what we can do is we're never going to take the place of a friend. It's not going to work. But we can spend more time with our teenagers. So just throwing a ball back and forth on the porch or in the backyard if you have one, just throwing that, it's amazing the conversations that you're going to have. That's the last tip I'll leave for you because I know that we have more awesome things to talk about. But I hope that was helpful, and we will definitely have the link for you at the end for resources. Again, it's absolutely free, and check back often because I'm adding new things.
Great. Thank you, Susan. I think that's going to be a treasure trove of people to go to refer to when they have the time to sit with it and see how it applies to them. I think we had a comment from someone that talked about reinforcing the importance of structure and a schedule, but also reassuring our kids that this is a great opportunity to take the time to develop, the things that they've not had time to develop, some creativity, some exploration, diving into something they're curious about, maybe encouraging them through not structured behavior, but deliberate behavior to do some exploration, to find that freedom within the structure.
Yeah, a couple things about that schedule. One of the things that's on there is recess, and I put it in big, bold letters because everybody needs recess. So I want them to explore boredom outside, explore staring at the clouds. I really think kids need to do that because we complain kids today don't have time. Well, we do now. The other thing that I have in there is at the bottom is a journal entry at the bottom of the schedule for every day. Great. Because this is a historic time. Yeah. And encourage your child to write down every day, just a Dear Diary. It doesn't have to be formal. It doesn't have to be online. You could do it as a family. But your children and we are going to want to look back at this. They're going to want to share these journals. Right. Very simple, just a sentence a week. It doesn't matter. They're going to want to share this with their children one day. Right. Okay, great. That's a ton of stuff. We really appreciate it. Lindsey, we want to give you the spotlight now. You can talk about things from, how do we react to our kids, how they're feeling and how we're feeling, and how do we bring those feelings together into something constructive and really supportive?
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you, Peter. Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsey Soder. I've already been introduced as being an individual and family counselor at Pathways Transition Program. Some of you might know us. We are in downtown Decatur, catty corner from the Chick-fil-A. I know that's a big landmark for a lot of families in Decatur. So I'm a counselor there. I have a master's in marriage and family therapy and counseling. So doing work with families is sort of my bread and butter. I'm primarily based within Decatur schools at Talley Street Elementary. I also work some at APS schools and DeKalb County schools. So a bit of my bent is with elementary school age kids. You'll hear a little bit of that in my talk, but I'll try to address those of you with older kids as well. So I'm going to be speaking a little bit about maybe some more abstract concept. We've had a lot of really great concrete tips and some feedback for you. I'm going to be talking tonight about how we can be empathizing, connecting with our family members, and as well how we can be modeling emotion regulation and stress management during this time. Like some people have said, this is a historic time. I've pointed out to my clients as I've been sitting with families throughout these past 2 weeks, and by sitting with, I mean, I'm sitting here and they're sitting there. I've been doing telehealth services. But as I'm sitting with families, I'm pointing out that you don't know how to do this yet. No one knows how to do this yet. And it's just really important that we put this into context and promote self-compassion. So I hope to do a little bit of that for you, promote some self-compassion for you as parents, as well as how to bring that into your interaction with your kids. So the first point I want to make is just how is this concept of emotional contagion. I thought contagion was kind of a fitting term for what we're dealing with right now, but it's very true for our emotions too. So you and your kids are kind of picking up on the emotional, social climate of so many different sources. So we look to the news, we look to social media, especially our teenagers are looking to social media to know how to think about this and how to feel about this. But the primary source for where your kids go to get a read of how much of a threat is this to me is you, including your teenagers. So your kids are watching you, your affect, your behavior. If you are a part of a two-parent household, your interactions together, in order to gauge for themselves how much of a threat this is to their day-to-day lives, to their family, to their safety. So you get the privilege and the burden of modeling what emotion regulation looks like for them, of modeling how to cope with a new and a scary situation, how to stay connected in it, how to be open and promote compassion rather than criticize. So like I say, in some ways that feels like a burden because that's a big task. That's a big thing that we're asking you as parents to step into. So I have a few points for how you can handle that, how you can practice that. The first one is one that I've been working with my clients on recently, and it's this concept of dialectics. So I've borrowed this from dialectical behavioral therapy. And it's just a really important life skill. It's the ability overall to hold two things at once, two seemingly opposed things at once, and be comfortable with that tension. And so this is a great thing that you can be practicing as you're talking to your kids about this, that this feels really scary and new and uncertain. And I know that we can cope with stress. And I know that we've been through difficult things before. So just really being able to practice dialectics, holding two unknowns together. Another thing is that you want to be modeling emotional expression and self-disclosing with limits, of course. So communicate that you're uncertain. You don't need to pretend like you have it all together. You've not gone through a pandemic either. But we don't want to be unraveling in front of our kids, right? So your kids need to know that it's okay to feel what they're feeling. You telling them that you feel anxious too tells them it's okay for them to feel anxious, right? So they need to know it's okay to feel what they're feeling, but they also need to know that you still have them and you're still there to be their kind of security blanket in this. So modeling emotional expression with limits, right? Another big piece that I wanted to bring up was this concept of attunement. So I'm borrowing this from Daniel Siegel. If anyone wants to write him down, he is a great writer on brain-based parenting. Very interesting stuff if you happen to be a bit of a science nerd like me. So attunement overall is just this ability to communicate to your kids, to your partner, to even those who you work with, right, your coworkers, that you're with them. I see you, I feel you, and I'm with you. So it's very closely related to empathy, but this is going to be so important right now because we're all in this season of stress. And when we're in a season of stress, all of our coping skills come out, right? And that's going to include some of the faulty ones. So it's going to include whether we turn to some unhealthy behaviors. Someone mentioned all the junior mints, right? So we're snacking more. We turn to criticizing more. Some of us want to buckle down on the structure. Some of us want to just throw away the structure, right? So all of our kind of coping mechanisms are going to come out right now, yours and your kids. But before you correct your kids in their coping mechanisms, you want to really make sure that you're attuning with them. So resonate with your child's emotional experience before attempting to change the behavior or the thought process. This is especially good for little kids because they don't always know what they're feeling. And so helping them label their emotions in conversation can help them learn skills that they're taking out of this stressful season into their life to go. And then another point I want to make is just the importance of not downplaying what our kids are feeling right now. So we want to be affirming and acknowledging their emotions, their fear, their disappointment, their sadness, their loneliness. And we want to be able to remember that in the right context, right? So place their development within the right context. That your teenager might really be grieving the loss of prom. And I mean grieving the death of some life dream, right? And there can be this tension sometimes as adults, knowing that prom is not the end of the world. Right now we're trying to pay our bills, right? But your teenager has not developed their frontal lobe yet. They don't have their long-term thinking developed just quite yet. So prom is their life dream right now. I don't mean to stereotype your teen. They might think very differently, but just kind of trying to stress the importance of not downplaying the feelings that they're having and the things that they were looking forward to that have now really shifted. So that's overall kind of my main piece of social modeling, emotional modeling for your kids right now. To this point that Scott had in the chat about structure, I want to kind of add on a little bit to that. So not only is promoting, so structure right now is going to be really important for keeping everybody's sanity, but to Scott's point that it might be interesting to give your kids the reins a little bit. Let them set the structure. Let them find some endeavors to dive into. That's not just great for everybody's sanity, but it's great for coming out of this with a sense of survival and healing, right? So this is essentially a communal trauma that we're going through, right? As a globe. And so we want to be thinking about ways that we can promote resilience rather than trauma. And so one of the ways that we want to do that is by instilling a sense of control and autonomy in our kids right now, and for yourselves as well. So even just for myself, I've been looking for the things that I can control rather than ruminating on things that I can't. So for your kids, that's going to look like maybe allowing them to participate in planning the schedule. For littles, letting them pick out their clothing for the day, little things like that, wherever you can find space for them to gain control. And then for the older kids, it might look like having a greater contribution to the family climate right now, to the family structure, and to family meetings. Tied into family meetings, it's going to be important right now to create meaning for this event. So again, I'm thinking about how we can promote resilience through this rather than trauma. We need, when we're talking about going through a stressful life event, one of the ways that we reduce traumatic impact is by forming a narrative for it. What was this in my life? What did it mean? And how did I grow from it? And so that's a great thing to be wrestling with in your family meetings. I pulled a little quote from my guy, Dan Siegel here, that telling your children the story of an experience can help them integrate both the events and the emotional content. So your kids know about the events. They're learning it from the news. They're learning it from social media. They don't necessarily understand the emotional content. And so finding ways to plug this into the greater narrative of your family story is going to be very important, whether that means sitting down to come up with your family values or your family intentions. Maybe you're part of a religious organization or faith practice and finding ways to plug this into that story, whatever that looks like for you. Having those open family conversations and allowing everyone to contribute, whether they're little ones who really don't have a deep sense yet of what values mean or older kids. It's going to be very important in promoting resilience through this.
I want to make one observation or ask you for a quick answer on this, and it probably was embedded in a lot of the things that you were talking about. But in my feed, I am connected to people who are message on impermanence and uncertainty, and those are the things that are real things in our life, and that really to understand more clearly, and to not be too tied to permanence and certainty, because those things are out of our control. So would you say that, I think for younger kids, it's too probably esoteric a concept, but for older kids, just a word or two or a sentence or two of how do you summarize, or, you're trying to teach them self-control, what they can. How do you get across that understanding and accepting impermanence and uncertainty is a really strong, positive life skill?
Yeah, great, deep question. So one of the things that I think is important in this season of uncertainty in particular is, even though we can't kind of relate to going through this specific event, this pandemic and social distancing in this way, we can reflect on times that we have gotten through a season of loneliness, or we've gotten through a season of uncertainty. So you know your kids better than their counselor does, right? And so can you reflect with them on a time that they had uncertainty and they walked through it and made it out to the other side? And then, overall, this, I do a lot of work with mindfulness. And so part of what you're speaking to, Peter, is the concept of mindfulness, of holding things loosely. And that fits with the dialectics too of, so if we're talking about holding things loosely, I was really looking forward to this next semester with my friends. And I feel so heartbroken that I don't get that. And I'm going to walk through this, right? So maybe that speaks a little bit to it. Overall, it's a great, deep question. And I think a lot of that's just going to depend on the family's values and just having those conversations again about, we haven't walked through this exactly, but what are seasons that we've walked through similar emotions?
Great. All right. Thank you. And I think your reference to mindfulness is great, because I think that we probably all have a connection to somebody who's voicing on mindfulness in some way. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's probably a common vocabulary word, and maybe has some common concepts that parents can share with their youth.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And I wanted to note as well, one of the things that we embed within our comprehensive counseling program, K-12, is teaching students about resiliency. Yeah. In younger grades, K-5, we talk about the rocks versus clay. Rocks are rocks, and there's not a whole lot you can do with a rock to change it. But with clay, you're able to mold it and maybe make it into something different. So becoming flexible when different things face you, and when what you think is permanent is no longer permanent. It's hard for small ones, and even my senior, to think that, school is something permanent. This is something that's always going to be like, school is like taxes. It's not going away. Yeah. But now it's different now. So what, even kind of getting used to what I thought was a rock and is now clay, having those conversations and being real with students about, this kind of like you were just speaking to, being real about how it affects you, and helping them walk through this what I am owning as a temporary normal. I keep hearing people say, this is our new normal. This is our temporary new normal. This is not going to, fingers crossed, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, as we say in Savannah. This is not going to be a permanent thing. But resiliency, and knowing that, it may not be a COVID-19 again, but there's going to be things that come up that change what you thought your everyday was. And learning those skills to be able to, like you said, walk through that and be able to look back and say, I did this really cool thing in a crazy circumstance. And if something like this happens again, I've got a little bit more skill set to be able to handle that next time. And doing it in age appropriate ways for your second grader versus my senior, that conversation is going to look different.
Yeah, and I think to your point that resilience is going to allow each of us to find the new normal that will be permanent, because there will be repercussions of this that we're going to take to heart. And for some people, it's creativity, and for some people, it's optimism, and for some people, it's resourcefulness. So it's a lot of different things. I'm gravitating towards the people who have messages that see this as an opportunity, to rediscover things and newly discover things.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things we're rediscovering is our family in a lot of ways, because what we talked about to set this up is that a lot of the things that our children do have, and I don't see this in a negative way, but have been outsourced to other things that aren't accessible any longer. They're outsourced to sports. They're outsourced to classes they take. They're outsourced to friends, and they're outsourced to activities. And we've got to become now the understand what has been outsourced and take some of that back on ourselves, and create some skills within them to source the thing for themselves, because that other thing is out of reach right now. So one question that came through, and I'm going to shifting some gears. So Ms. Moore, someone asked on the chat about getting vitamin D, and I think anybody who's been to the doctor recently has probably been told they need some vitamin D. So on these days that we have, one day's rainy, one day's sunny. I think tomorrow's going to be a little bit of both and warm. What is there some good source of vitamin D you would recommend right off?
Well, absolutely. Of course, I would always recommend our natural sunshine, but of course, we all can't get out like we'd like. If you can find the opportunity when the sun is shining, to try and just, of course, safe distancing, walk around. I actually rode a bike today with my teen, and I haven't ridden a bike in years, but we needed that sunshine, we needed that fresh air. But as far as foods go, I would say try foods like fatty fish, such as tuna. Tuna is a great resource for vitamin D, mackerel, salmon, egg yolks, mushrooms. Those kinds of foods are all richly packed with vitamin D. So those would be great resources. As far as supplements, I'm not a huge fan of supplements, but to each their own. I would always say if you are going to take a supplement to get that, speak with your physician, but otherwise try and get it in our everyday foods. I would say that's the best way.
Okay. And we have another question that's come through, and I think that maybe each person can take just a sentence or two. The question is, how do we impress upon our teenagers the gravity of what's happening? Because I know I've had neighbors who say, I see teens down at the lake, they're not staying apart. How do we impress upon our teenagers the gravity of what's going on without freaking them out? So there's that tension I think we probably all have with our teenagers of how do we get something serious across that they can believe in without panic?
I'll jump in if that's okay. I can definitely tell you what not to do, which is what I did. So I probably oversold what was happening, but also I have teenagers, and one was really pushing to go to a birthday party that all of her friends were going to, and I'm the only mom who wouldn't let her go. I think I was the only mom. And then I think what I ended up happening was that as time went on, she actually saw, because she watches news a little bit, she kind of in the background, and we don't have it on all day or anything, but it was a slow realization. I love what Lindsey said about their frontal cortex is not fully developed, so they can't really why wouldn't I? I'm fine, but none of us are sick. Why wouldn't we go out? I don't think they have the ability. Lindsey will have a much better official answer, but I'm just
Sure.
kids. And so I think they could handle. And so anyway, that's how I did it. Lindsey, did you want to pop in?
No, oh, sorry. I was going to pop in and say we were losing you. Yeah, you're very right. Teens also, you parents know this, teens have what we call invincibility bias. So if you have teenage boys, especially teenage boys, they don't think about themselves getting hurt. My husband still has a little bit of invincibility bias, right? So sometimes it stays with you. And so that's coming into play. And then they can't quite think in the same long-term ways that we can. So I think part of it is recognizing that this is going to be a battle that we're fighting right now, right? We just really need to practice normalizing, that this is going to be a battle and that's okay. And also everything about really empathizing with their feelings of disappointment, practicing our dialectics, and then I think, trying to get them not excited about something, but trying to instill in them some sense of passion about the bigger picture here, if we can, right? Because part of what teens are doing developmentally right now, too, is developing things they're passionate about. So maybe you have a teen who's interested in social justice or something, right? And so really promoting that this is for the greater good of the community, or trying to kind of just approach it in some way that helps them understand this isn't just for you, this is for others. And there's a cause that they can get behind. Might be a little way in for some of your teams.
Great. Thanks, Lindsey.
Yeah, thank you.
Peter, can I add to that very quickly?
Of course.
Because I do have a teen and I have been weighing what I'm allowing her to see. As I said before, I'm very, very in tune with what's going on constantly. Sure. But I don't give her that because I know my child. I know what my teen can take. Now, absolutely, she's in high school, so I do want to communicate things with her and see where she is with it. However, I know if I give her too much, she may have bad dreams. So I really, really think that it's important to know your child and use this time to get to know your child all over again and just kind of feel it out that way. So that's my non-official, just me being a parent answer. No,
that's great advice, because you're going to know what your child hears with seriousness, and you know what your child's going to hear with that's going to instill some panic in them. So you have to know your boundaries for sure. Great.
And the way I've handled it is sort of a sense of community type of focus. And I tell her, yes, your desire is to go and hang out with a group of 16, 17-year-olds. But let's say you go to Martina's house down the street. Martina also has an octogenarian grandparent living with her, and her immune system is not the same as your 16, 17-year-old system. You may not knowingly be a carrier, and then she's affected. So it's not that I'm trying to keep you from from celebrating with your friends or having social activities, but we've got to think more about the greater community when we're experiencing things in this current time. So I kind of focus on that piece. So it's a punishment. You can't go somewhere, you wild teenage person. Let's think about everybody that may be involved with that social connection and the extensions of that social connection. It's a great time
for empathy. It's a great time for community, and it's a great time for them to learn the ramifications of each of us and what the role we each play within that community, within that, within our ecosystems that we live in. These are great opportunities for lessons for them. Thank you for sharing that. So I appreciate you all. We've gone a little bit over. I think we've gotten to the questions that we were going to answer. Jen's going to wrap with some poll results. She was running some polls. Terry, do you have a comment to make? Oh, she's waving. So Jen, are you going to tell us a little bit about the attendees tonight?
Sure. So I thought, though, that I had the settings so that you could see the results, everybody in attendance. And we only did 2 polls so far, and it was how many children do you have, and then what's your role. And so I just did a shout out to, we had 2 grandparents with us this evening.
Great. And
then as it comes to how many children, it fell where we thought, heavily on the 2. But it's hard because we have gone over and we're losing everybody mainly for A, we're at an hour, but B, I know that there's probably, is the governor talking right now too? Somebody shake their head. Yeah.
He came on at 8.
Yes, so I know we all want to get off, but we wanted to introduce, for those of you who could stay on just for a minute, I'd like to invite one of our Decatur Parents Network friend, Scott Toole, to introduce this idea of if maybe you'd like to continue some of these conversations. So I'm going to go look at his profile and set him to somebody who can speak, although he may not be here anymore. Please tell me he's still here.
And while you're doing that, Jen, I'm just going to encourage everyone to please do the survey for us. That will really help us. It's being sent out to you at the end. It will really help us because right now we have this set on the recurring button. And so we're hoping to do more of these, maybe with some of the same people, maybe with new people. That feedback is up to you.
Yeah, so thank you, Terry, for that. And so I do believe I have Scott now being able to talk with us, although it says I... do
you have Rhonda or Scott?
I'm not sure. So, Scott, let me know about what's going on here, because I clicked on Scott. Okay, well, sorry, Rhonda, if you'd like to talk, you can. But
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
well, thanks, Scott. Rhonda, I didn't mean to pick on you. And Scott, would you like to have video?
Oh, it doesn't matter. You can if you want. I'm appropriately dressed. I'll tell you that.
Thank God, yes. and the truth is, I don't believe I can do it from here because
That's quite all right.
Okay, all right.
We're
so
learning.
Give us a quick thing, and I'm going to send another poll. Yep. Go ahead while you're doing that.
Hi, Scott.
Hey, how are you, Susan? Good to see you.
You too.
I can see you at least. Okay, so we have been talking about the idea of doing what's called a mastermind, which is a recurring meeting of a small group of people who get together and talk about, really honestly, it could be lots of things. Take your pick these days, right? So one of the ideas that I have is, I wouldn't call it homeschooling proper, but things like that. I'm having to take, as many of us are, having to take a much more hands-on role in the education of my kids. And obviously they get homework and they do that each day, but I really want to facilitate, I want to use this as an opportunity to facilitate their learning and to get them curious about other things that usually they're too busy to do. So that's just one idea that I have, but there's all kinds of other things. There is student and family anxiety. There's just about, you name it. I think any kinds of conversations we can have would be valuable to get together, to be supportive of one another, to go through kind of a program. So really setting an agenda and meeting at a scheduled time, same time every week, that kind of thing. So there's some structure, but it's really a conversation. It is not an expert basis group where we learn from one person or necessarily an expert, although we could certainly cover content from books and other sources that we like. But it's about sharing ourselves with each other. That's the basic idea of this, is tapping into the wisdom of the crowd. And that is really what I'm interested in. That's what I'm passionate about. I've been in mastermind groups for the last 2.5 years, and parenting and in other fatherhood groups. And it's been life-changing for me. I'd love to share it. If anybody is interested, there will be information coming out very soon about that. Still have yet to set really a topic because it's evolving daily. I have another idea. And I want to get some feedback from other people too. I want to get into a topic that is interesting for a lot of people, not just me. So anyway, I can talk forever about this, as you can probably tell, and I won't do that.
But these meetings are virtual, right, Scott, usually?
Yes, it would be it would be using the Zoom platform, except instead of a webinar, it would be a meeting room where we could all see each other and we all talk to each other, and we can all, it's a conversation. It's like FaceTime, group FaceTime, except it's just using Zoom. That's the platform I've been using for the last couple of years in these groups, other groups that I'm in. So it's great. So pay attention, look out for more information about that. And obviously, if anybody has questions for me, I don't know what our time is like right now, but happy to answer any questions.
Sure. I believe they won't kick us out for a little bit if anybody does want to stay on.
They won't kick us out.
Okay, so thank you, Scott, for sharing that. I knew he was going to do better on that description. We're hoping people will be interested in that. I have a poll that asks about that, but I can't ask that poll until the age grade one is finished, and it looks like people are still clicking on it. So thank you for engaging in our polls and in tonight.